Wow, what a catch!
LBW, first ball.
Tremendous catch, tumbling forward.
He's bowled.
From the BBC World Service, in association with ABC and All India Radio, this is Stumped.
Hello and welcome to Stumped, your intercontinental hit of news, features and debate from the quirky world of cricket. I'm Alison Mitchell and I'm in the commentary box at Lord's in London. It's beautiful green outfield. There's been so much rain in the last month. What it has done has meant that the ground is looking lush. It's sunny. It's the first time that Test cricket has been played at Lord's since 2019. And it's the first time that crowds have been allowed in as spectators since that season as well because of the pandemic. So 6,500 socially distant spectators, plenty of room for everyone to move around this magnificent ground. And it's just been wonderful to have Test cricket here and a crowd in as well.
Yes, wonderful to watch from afar. Jim Maxwell here in Sydney. And probably the only news at this end, other than the delight of seeing sunshine at Lord's and another South African make 100 on debut, even though he wasn't playing for South Africa, is that Nick Hockley has been confirmed as the CEO of Australian cricket. The first time an overseas administrator has got the job on a full-time basis. And from all of us who follow the game, thank goodness for that. It's taken him 9 months to get to this point, and we wish Nick all the best.
For All India Radio, I'm Charu Sharma, still in Bangalore because of complicated lockdown rules making travel quite difficult. Thankfully, though, the number of cases has reduced quite sharply, so maybe there will be a reduction in this whole lockdown business a couple of weeks from now, I believe. But Alison, of course, I'd love to be where you are. The Indian team, mind you, may not be too concerned about lockdowns, etc., because they are quarantined in the UK. And even though there's a lot of optimism about their potential performance in the big one, I do think, and I feel that it's just a shade unfair that New Zealand's getting to play this two-match test series and they should be certainly better prepared. And maybe, for me, that makes them favourites.
There's a statement. We'll revisit that as the summer goes on. But yeah, it was, as I mentioned, quite amazing to be here at Lord's for the first morning and just experience that buzz of having people arrive in the ground, first day of a test match summer. And then the cricket, well, it was a tough day for England with the ball, and New Zealand's debutant opener, Devon Conway, made an unbeaten 100. But the opening day ended up being rather overshadowed by some tweets from, well, historical tweets from another debutant, and that's the England fast bowler, Ollie Robinson, because it was late in the day when historical tweets of a racist and sexist nature came to light. Now, there were posts that were put out in 2012 and 2013 when Robinson was, 18 and 19. He's now 27. But what also made it very pertinent was that this came after, at the start of the day's play, the teams had lined up in what was known as a moment of unity to put out a very strong anti-racism and anti-discrimination message. Players wore T-shirts when they lined up at the start of play. So for these tweets to come out on that same day really did cause quite controversy and a stir. At the end of the day's play, I went down to the outfield to do post-match interviews. Ollie Robinson came and he read a statement that had been written, and I was able to speak to him afterwards as well.
On the biggest day of my career so far, I'm embarrassed by the racist and sexist tweets that I posted over 8 years ago, which have today become public. I want to make it clear that I'm not racist and I'm not sexist. I deeply regret my actions and I'm ashamed of making such remarks. I was thoughtless and irresponsible, and regardless of my state of mind at the time, my actions were inexcusable. Since that period, I've matured as a person and fully regret the tweets. Today should be about my efforts on the field and the pride of making my Test debut for England, but my thoughtless behaviour in the past has tarnished this. Over the past few years, I've worked hard to turn my life around. I've considerably matured as an adult. The work and education I've gained personally from the PCA in my county and the England cricket team have helped me to come to terms and gain a deep understanding of being a responsible professional cricketer. I would like to unreservedly apologise to anyone I've offended, my teammates and the game as a whole in what has been a day of action and awareness in combating discrimination from our sport. I don't want something that happened 8 years ago to diminish the efforts of my teammates and the ECB as they continue to build meaningful action with comprehensive initiatives and efforts, which I fully endorse and support. I will continue to educate myself, look for advice and work with the support network that is available to me to learn more about getting better in this area. I am sorry and I have certainly learned my lesson today.
Ollie, just to follow up on that, those tweets were when you were 18, but yes, contrary to that spirit of unity, the moment at the start of play today, are you fully behind everything that the team are doing on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long time since those tweets and I've grown and matured as a person a lot in that time. I was young and naive and I regret that.
So that was Ollie Robinson, and he was visibly emotional when he was reading out that statement. And, you know, we had wondered over the course of the afternoon, right, just how is this going to be handled by the ECB, by Robinson? Would he say something? Would the ECB put out a statement on his behalf? Would he simply put out a written statement? But he came and he did front up and he faced some questioning and he verbalised. It was pre-prepared, but he did front up and he said what he said. I don't know how well aware, Charu and Jim, you are of Ollie Robinson's background, because he has spoken quite a lot in the lead up to this test match about his troubles in the past. He was released from Yorkshire for unprofessional behaviour. He had strong ties in Kent and he couldn't really cut himself off from his friends up there. And he has improved his professional life to the degree that he's had more of a successful time with Sussex of late, having moved counties. Now, there have been repercussions in terms of a strong statement from Tom Harrison, the ECB chief executive, who has really expressed his extreme disappointment, reiterating that the ECB has zero tolerance stance to any form of discrimination. He says there are rules in place that handle conduct of this nature, and the ECB did launch a new anti-discrimination code of conduct, which is in place across the professional game. He says we will initiate a full investigation as part of our disciplinary process. The PCA, Ollie Robinson referenced them. They have also stressed that Robinson has had workshops and education to challenge opinions and views, and they deliver this across the game to all cricketers as well. They recently formed an equality and diversity inclusion working group.
Well, he appears to be genuinely contrite. The reputational damage has been done to him in the game to some extent, and let's hope that he can move on from this. You've got to behave yourself. Be careful what you say.
I suppose you have to behave yourself at all times, especially if you have taken on the responsibility of doing very well in your sport or any line of work. But, you know, sometimes the world does see sports persons as perhaps living in some strange ivory tower or some other planet. I mean, within the world of sport, you are going to have very different characters, and nothing condones what he did many years ago, but he was only 17, 18 then. And Jim, I've said, even in the case of the signed paper gate, you've got to forgive and forget and move on as long as people are willing to learn. And it does seem from all accounts that Robinson is genuinely apologetic about what he did many years ago as a youngster. And so, you know, instead of sort of focusing even more now on what he did, I think we have to focus on what needs to, once again, and my favorite word, Alison, what we need to do about counseling at a younger age to people who are focusing on, especially, I mean, for all of us, in the world of sport.
The sense of how Ollie Robinson dealt with it in reading that statement took me to another sporting story which has dominated in the last week, and that of Naomi Osaka, a tennis star who has withdrawn fully from the French Open now because she said that she didn't want to face the media, because particularly after defeats and in tough situations, she found that had a really big impact on her mental health. She absolutely referenced in her state of mind. Ollie Robinson referenced his own state of mind at the time when he wrote those tweets, he said. But yeah, just thinking of Osaka and how, you know, big a talking point that has been throughout the week. She was first of all fined more than £10,000, $15,000 for not doing post-match media after her first round win at the French Open. And then later that day, there was that joint statement from the organisers who said she could face expulsion from the tournament if she continued to avoid them. And then Osaka, in a tweet announcing her decision to withdraw completely, said that she had long suffered bouts of depression ever since she won her first Grand Slam title in 2018. And so this has brought a big debate around players facing up to the media in tough situations. And cricket is a team sport, we know that. So in a sense, it's a little bit different, because if a team has a bad day, there's often a coach or the captain or somebody else to take the heat off. In Ollie Robinson's case at Lords, he absolutely took it on himself. But that general question, Jim and Chair, about, you know, the value of the press conference and players fronting up and having to do it in difficult situations. Is this a genuine debate that needs having about the degree to which players should be forced to face up to press?
I think it is. In Osaka's case, and in most players' case in professional sport, it's a contractual obligation. They have to appear, otherwise we're going to get fined, and that's what's happened. It's interesting to note in this case that none of the companies that support Osaka, as far as I can see, have been at all critical of the position she has taken because of her mental health and everything else. They've been very sympathetic, very supportive. And so I think we have to be flexible with this and understand that in some cases there are going to be situations where sportsmen and women are going to find it difficult to address some of the things that perhaps they'd rather not. If it's a contractual obligation, they're committed. But perhaps there needs to be a change of that relationship between those that have got the players in the spotlight and the relationship with the media. And if Osaka has other issues, well, quite clearly she probably shouldn't be on the tennis court at all if she has serious mental health issues and depression, and she needs to be having a rest from the game.
Charu, I mean, both you and I have covered other individual sports outside of cricket. I've done a lot of Olympics and gymnastics, tennis in particular as well. What's your take on, I guess, very much that individual front where there is no hiding? You are the competitor. It is just you.
Well, just a couple of points. First, of course, and especially for leading stars of, say, the sport of tennis, there's a huge cocoon. So they're not individuals. They have a huge support staff, a coach and a trainer and a mental trainer and so on and so forth. So I don't think Naomi is short of this team. And I completely empathize with her, by the way, because, people do go through bouts where there's self-doubt and all sorts of other, extraneous issues and they can't perform at their best. But what this situation now, I think, offers is an opportunity for the world of sport to create windows for those who, it can also be misused by, if one athlete says, I don't want to do post-match pressers, everybody could fall in line and say, well, I don't want to do it either. And then there's chaos. So I think what is necessary here is maybe a sort of a dialogue with all your players saying that, listen, I hope you're ready for this because you have contracted for this. And specific timeouts can be taken for those who say, no, really, at this point of time, I'm suffering greatly. So can you give me 3 months off or a month off? And of course, professional assistance needs to be offered at that point of time. So these windows can be created, should be created. And maybe that's the way forward rather than clubbing everybody into the same level of mental sort of conditioning at that point of time, saying, no, you have to.
Well, those Ollie Robinson tweets rather overshadowed what was a very good opening day for New Zealand as the tourists at Lord's. Their debutant Devon Conway made an unbeaten 136 opening the batting, and he shared an unbroken partnership of 132 with Henry Nicholls. But importantly, he now has the highest score made at Lord's by a Test debutant. Now, Charu, England players who were involved in the IPL aren't featuring in this match, but news that a lot of people have been waiting for around the IPL came through this week in that the tournament will resume and it will be in the UAE later this year. The statement from the BCCI has said that the decision to go to the UAE for, 31 outstanding matches due to the monsoon season in India in September and October. No mention of the COVID situation in the country. But was the UAE the only option to complete the tournament?
Well, perhaps it was. But it's quite remarkable that they have been able to find a window large enough to officially conclude the season. It was just the natural thing to do, to take it away to the UAE, where last year they did a pretty good job. And it does seem to be well set with 3 grounds not too far from each other. So it's the perfect opportunity to conclude the IPL. I'm glad that the BCCI will manage to do this, to be able to conclude a season under such situations and a lot of other contractual conclusions as well. Because, if you end something halfway, there are all sorts of things that are lying around which are liable to cause some disarray. But great for the BCCI to be able to do this if they can. And, all of us should be happy. I'm sure the players certainly will be delighted.
And interestingly, the T20 World Cup is due to be staged in India after the IPL. The BCCI have asked for an extension of time from the ICC to take, as they say, an appropriate call on the hosting of the tournament. So that's one to watch.
From the BBC World Service, this is Stumped on All India Radio.
Jemima Rodriguez will, along with her Indian teammates, be playing a test match and a series of ODI and T20 games against England in the coming weeks. England will follow that with a white ball series against New Zealand in September, with players featuring domestically in the new 100 competition in between. And someone who's already made an impact domestically this season is England wicket-keeper bat Amy Jones. Amy, welcome to Stumped.
Hiya, thank you.
Good to see you. We'll come to your recent 100 in just a moment. But first of all, how excited are you for this international summer 2021?
Yeah, so excited. We didn't really know when the games were coming last year, so to have a full schedule this year is just brilliant.
Amy, hi, this is Charu Sharma from All India Radio. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
Within the Indian cricket team, who would you like to mention as especially competent cricketers you'd like to watch out for?
I think there's loads. They've obviously got a very strong team. I think just from like historically, like the last tour we played in India, Pandey and Goswami caused us a lot of trouble at the top. Obviously, two very experienced bowlers, and batters wise, there's loads. There's obviously Mitali Raj, who we've not played against for a while now, but world class batter. Rodriguez, Mandana. There's so many. There's such a strong team. So there will definitely be a very good challenge.
Well, I haven't played too much Test cricket, sadly, though. But playing against India, will it be good preparation for the World Cup? Because I suppose all the girls could get as much competition as they can in the coming months before the big tournaments.
Yeah, exactly. I think we just want to play as much cricket as possible leading up to that. Obviously India are a world-class team, so there'll be great preparation for us, and hopefully we get some really competitive games.
Amy, we really appreciate you coming on Stumped and joining us today, so thanks for that, and good luck for the coming matches. Amy Jones, England wicket-keeper bat. Well, that's all we've got time for on Stumped this week here on All India Radio. My thanks to Charu Sharma and Jim Maxwell, and of course to you all for listening. You can follow us throughout the week on Twitter. We're at BBCWS Sport. Use the hashtag BBC Stumped. Until next week, bye for now.
Stumped is a BBC sport production for the BBC World Service in association with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation and All India Radio.